Hi, welcome to Georgie Makes. I'm Georgie, and this is my co-host, Bradley. And this YouTube channel is all about my making journey. It's a great opportunity for me to talk about what I'm working on, especially knitting, and for me to share that with the world and also to keep for myself for the future. So thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel and who has been watching. But if you're new, welcome. Again, I'm Georgie. I'm coming to you from Raleigh, North Carolina, and today is Sunday, April 4th. So if you celebrate Easter, happy Easter. Right now, it is really sunny outside. You can see the shadows behind me. Hopefully, after this video is recorded, I will change into some short sleeves and be able to go for a nice walk and just enjoy my Sunday. So it's been a while since my last recording. I've been really busy, which is good, and I'll share a little bit about what I've been up to, but because of that, I've actually got a lot of knitting to share. So I'll be going through some notes to make sure I don't leave anything out, but I thought that I would start with talking a little bit about my finished objects, and in particular the sweater that I'm wearing now. So if you've seen the show before, I've been working on making my very first sweater. So this is the Weekender Light by Andrea Mowry, and I finally finished it. So I've been working on this for probably maybe 2.5 months. The last time I filmed an episode, I had pretty much finished the body and needed to knit the sleeves. So I was a little bit hesitant about knitting the sleeves, actually, because I've never made a sweater before, so I thought the sleeves might be too tight. And they are snug, but I actually really like the way that they fit. And I think that because I didn't have too much ease, I think I did a little bit less than the pattern recommended. I think the snug sleeves kind of accentuate what ease I do have. But I am really happy with the fit. I am happy with the color, and I feel like this was a successful pattern. So my co-host has left us, so let me recenter here a little bit. But yeah, so my first sweater is done. I'll talk a little bit about some techniques I use. So first off, I used Miss Babs Katahdin. So basically that yarn is it's like a 400 gram hank or skein. So it's enormous, and there is some color variation in it because it is so large. So I noticed when winding that some of, like, maybe the outside of the yarn was a little bit darker than the inside of the yarn, or maybe the opposite, I'm not sure. But because of that, I decided to alternate skeins in this pattern. So I used the helical knitting technique, which was new to me. And if you haven't used it before, basically you drop your yarn and slip 3 stitches and then pick up your other ball of yarn, and then you go back around the circle and do the same thing. Drop your yarn, slip 3 stitches, pick up another ball of yarn. And what it does is it helps prevent color pooling. So you can see that there are some, let me see, there's some patches of dark yarn. This one's pretty pronounced where you can kind of see like this spot, but because I switched skeins or switched balls of yarn every other, it kept it from making like a whole, stripe of one dark color. And I did that for pretty much the whole sweater. I think I started a couple inches up, and I did it for each sleeve as well. And I do think that really helped because I noticed that my one sleeve actually ended up with more dark than the second sleeve, but because of the way it's dispersed, it's not particularly noticeable. So that was something fun that I learned with this sweater. I also used the tubular cast on for this sweater, which is part of the paid for pattern, and I had never done that before, and I have actually since used it on a hat I'll show you in a minute. So overall, I'm very happy with my sweater, and I was happy to get it off the needles because after a while, fingering weight sweaters take a really long time, and I have a lot of this yarn left over, but I will not be using it for a while. So anyway, so thank you guys for following along as I've worked on this sweater, And I'm glad I'm wearing it this morning because I don't know if it will be cool enough for me to wear again, probably until October of this year. So that is my first finished object. And then when I blocked it, I did stretch its length a little bit because I think that my gauge was a little bit off, so it ended up shorter in this depth than I expected it to be. So blocking helped me get a little bit of extra length on the sweater that I think suits my shape best. Okay, on to my next finished object. So I'm counting this as finished. I have not weaved in the ends, but this is my column sock. So I had been looking for a great textured pattern for a sock, and I actually was able to test knit for Dana Ray Makes her textured socks 3 ways pattern, and I put on my Instagram which pattern I should do, and this one won, not by a landslide, but because all 3 patterns look great, but this texture pattern here. So basically it's a 2x2 rib. I did this on US size 1 needles with a 40-inch cord in magic loop. Then you do a slip stitch pattern to make the columns, heel flap and gusset, finishing up the foot. So I'll weave in the ends when I get to it, but I have blocked the sock now. It puckered a little bit because slip stitch patterns sometimes cause puckering. They make the fabric a little tighter. So I actually knit this in a size medium, but I typically lean towards knitting a size small, and this is snug to get on. It fits my foot very comfortably, but especially in the leg, it doesn't have very much stretch to it. So I found it challenging to get the heel on. So I'm hoping after blocking it's a little bit more stretchy. Again, it's comfortable on, but a little bit of a battle to get over my heel. So this is my first finished sock that I'm going to show you, and the yarn I got from a friend from a yarn store in Milwaukee, and it is stitched together in the color Bummer Dude. And it's actually a pretty, like the yellows in this are neon, the speckles are very vibrant, and from a distance it looks more green. Here it's showing up more like kind of a grayish white, but it's kind of like a light green effect from the background. Okay. My cat is usually not very active. He is 12 and sleeps at least 20 hours a day, but he seems to be awake now, so you might hear him drinking water or making noise in the background of this video, so hopefully that's not too distracting. But yes, so when I was making these socks, I finished my first sock and knew how hard it was to get on my foot, and so then I kind of dragged my feet a little bit about casting on the second sock because I was not sure I wanted to make the second sock. I'm ultimately very happy with the fit, as I said, but I was kind of in a little bit of a rut with the textured pattern, and I had started pink textured socks a while back and had ripped back the pattern a couple of different times. So what I decided to do at that point was to finish up. I had already knit the cuff. But my pink socks that I've been working on for a while, I brought them back from my cabinet and put them on some needles that I had been using for the ribbing on my weekender because they're size 2 needles, and I ended up knitting these as vanilla socks. And I love knitting vanilla socks. I love knitting socks, but vanilla socks where you just knit plain knit stockinette the whole time, it's very soothing. It's so easy to do. I went on a trip to the mountains, and I was able to knit them in the car, in the passenger seat. I was not driving, but I was able to knit them in the car and not get car sick, and I just really enjoyed having this passive pattern. But I love this yarn, and someone had mentioned in the comments before that a plain vanilla sock often suits speckled yarns the best, and this it is so true, but this was just so fun to knit. So I'll let you see. This yarn is a Knit Picks yarn. It's a hawthorn in the colorway. I think it's Burlingame, but I'm not sure. There, you can kind of see the color. This is a little true to color. It's a little bit more pink from a distance. It looks super pink, but then close up you can see there's yellows, blues, purples, and greens kind of mixed throughout. This was really fun to knit. I did this on size 2s because that specific yarn, it's a little bit, it's kind of almost a heavier fingering. So I knit it on size 2s and dropped the stitch count down. I knit a longer leg because I knew I'd have a ton left over, so I figured I might as well make the leg longer. And then a slip stitch, heel flap and gusset, and then a rounded toe. But yeah, so I was able to finish this pair of socks while largely because of knitting time in the car, and then when I was in the mountains, obviously with COVID, not going out and about, so spent a lot of time knitting in the cabin that we rent. So really, really fun. And then because I was going to the mountains, I actually wanted to finish, so I had finished the sweater because I knew I wanted to wear it while I was there. If it was cool enough, I wanted to get a picture. And this was great, but it was actually pretty warm there, but I'm a cold-natured person, so the sweater was perfect. But I wanted to finish a hat. This is, I think, one of my favorite parts of this community that I have found through Instagram and YouTube is that I have connected with a few other makers. So there is an account, so Rochelle from Sassafras Knits, I have actually won a prize from her before, but she had posted a picture of herself knitting on this yarn from Coast to Coast Yarn Co. that I loved but missed out on called Orchard. And so it's like based off of a picture of an apple orchard, and it is just so stunning to me. And I saw her knitting a hat, and I like messaged her, and I was like, oh, is that this yarn? And she's like, yes, it is. And I was like, oh, I'm disappointed I missed out on it. And she said, actually, I got an extra one that I'm not going to use in DK. Are you interested in buying it for me? So she, I think probably cheaper than the cost of the yarn, she just charged me on Venmo and sent it to my house, and I was so excited about it that I wanted to cast on a hat right away. So I ended up knitting, I'm going to look this up, the Classic Ribbed Hat by Purl Soho. So this is just a free pattern on their blog, and the entire thing is 1x1 rib, which is maybe not for everyone, and did get tedious after a while, but was actually very easy car knitting because it's a 1x1 rib. But you knit it on pretty small needles. I think I knit it on 4s, US 4s, which is a little small for DK, so that the 1x1 rib tidies up a bit, because sometimes it can look a bit messy. But I think that it actually looks pretty good. And look at the way this color pooled. You can see like the light blues in the background. Yeah, it's getting a little blown out here. Let me see if this helps. You can see like the sky blues and the pinks and the greens from the apple orchard and the brown flecks. And I just love it. So I actually did the tubular cast on for this one, and it just looks like the knit stitches roll right over. And I think it really adds something. So this was a very simple free pattern, but just that one little detail, I think kind of brought it up a bit. And see, I love it. It's so soft. The colors are perfect, and I think I'll get a lot of use out of this fall. On Friday, I was able to go for a hike because I had the day off, and it was a little chilly, and that hat was perfect. The doubled over brim, like when you fold it up, kept my ears so warm. But yes, I'm very, very happy with this hat. So I think that's all of my finished objects. So that's 4, and that's in about a month. So 2 pairs of socks, finished a sweater, knit a hat, and I have a couple of things that I'm working on now that I'll share with you too. So, oh, actually, so the first thing I'm going to share is a sock that I'm working on. So Rochelle, the same person who sent me the yarn for my ribbed hat, she posted on Instagram that she was interested in, like, she wanted someone to knit socks for her. but she doesn't knit socks, and she has lots of yarn. She's like, what if I sent someone yarn to knit me socks? And I thought about all of the things that I have benefited from Rochelle and how much I love knitting socks, and I would love to knit her socks in some of her gorgeous yarn, just as a way to de-stress. I'm going to be knitting socks anyway. I don't necessarily need that many more pairs of socks, although I will be knitting more pairs of socks for myself, most certainly. And so I volunteered. I said, sure. I've never really knit socks for someone that I can't like try them on. So like I try my own socks on, or I knit socks for a partner, and he was able to try them on, so I knew if they fit or not. But so this is kind of an adventure. I was like, they might not fit, but we're taking the gamble. And so she sent me more of Erin's yarn from Coast to Coast Yarn Co. I don't know what the colorway is, but it's really stunning. It's got all these nice dark and light blues and greens. Look at that slip stitch. See how the color is changing on the heel. I'm on my first sock. This is 64 stitches. I think I did a 20 round cuff and about a 60 round leg, so it's a pretty tall sock. I'm actually doing the waffle rib pattern, and one of the people I've connected with on YouTube, the account was Dreamweaver. She actually recommended this to me as a good textured pattern sock, and I think the rib will be really forgiving for fit. So actually, thank you so much. I am so excited to be knitting this. It's an enjoyable knit because it's ribbed, but it's not so ribbed. And this is a free pattern, and the pattern is by Carolyn A. Ferneau. So it's got ribbing every other row in the leg, so you still get the nice stretchy texture, but you don't have to do so many purl stitches. And when you knit English style, a lot of the time purling is just a little bit inconvenient, so this is going really well. So I'm excited to finish these up. She sent me this cute little progress keeper to go with it. So it's got a ginkgo leaf, let me flip it, and these cute little beads. And so I've been making really quick progress on this sock actually. It's a very addicting knit because it's every 2 rows you do something different. So I'm always like, oh, I'll just knit 2 more, or I can just knit 2 more than that. Oh, well, I knit one, so I need to knit the next one. So I'm just flying through the pattern. So that is my one. And then my last project I'm working on, so I only have 2 things on the needles right now, is I've just started with one little swatch. So this is going to be, hopefully, the Noni tee by Megan Nodecker, and this is in the Rainforest Knits pattern. Let me get this turned around the right way. Yeah, so I am knitting, I think it'll look like this in the pattern, but this is just a swatch of the lace detailing. So the Rainforest Knits is an ebook that if you sign up right now for their newsletter, you can actually get it for free. So I did not pay for this pattern. I signed up for the newsletter, which I'm excited about. And the lace stitch pattern is kind of on the top of all 3 patterns. There's a cropped shirt, a full-length dress, and a full-length shirt. So I'm probably knitting the full-length shirt, and I might have to knit it a little short because I only have 2 skeins of this color, but I think I want it a little bit longer than the cropped version. But I'm excited because I've never knit lace before. So I knit a big swatch. I didn't get gauge, and I will decide, I think today, what I'm going to do, whether I want to re-swatch with larger needles or modify the size that I knit to reflect my stitch count. But basically it is a pretty simple lace pattern. It took me a little bit to get used to it, but this swatch, I really got it under my fingers. And this yarn was a gift from my mom for Christmas. And actually it has a pretty high silk content and is a very pretty spring green. So I think that it'll be perfect for that design because the yarn itself is Woodbury by Miss Babs, and it's 35% silk in a fingering weight yarn and 65% merino. and it's actually recommended for lace. So I saw some of the sample patterns on the website, and the lace really looked great. And then I couldn't really use this for anything else because it's not superwash, so I wouldn't feel that confident making socks out of it, which is what I make most of my fingering weight yarn into. My cat is now crunching on his food, so yeah. Good morning, Bradley. I guess we're catching him in one of his, again, like 4 hours of the day when he's awake. So yeah, so this will turn into the Noni tea, hopefully. And the color is called Dragon's Flight, and it's like a bright tonal spring green. Knit up, you can see some light variations, so you can see kind of a little bit, whoops, I'm really out of practice, y'all. Some light spots where there's some darker color pooling, but I think it'll mostly look like a solid tint. Okay, so now on to acquisitions. Lots going on in the past month. So my mom came to visit me before I went to the mountains, which was when I had planned to record, and then she was visiting and I was having too much fun to take the time to do this, and then I traveled some. But when my mom was visiting, we actually went to my local yarn store. So we went down, and I've been a few times, and I had gotten a gift card for Christmas, so we went together to spend the gift card and pick out yarn for my next sweater, which I think I want to make another Andrea Mowry pattern, but we'll see what happens. But I ended up settling on, this is Fiber Spates yarn in their Vivacious DK, and the colorway is, this is upside down, the colorway is Spiced Plum. So I looked up this brand, and basically it is a indie dyed yarn that only does wholesale. So this, I think, is pretty true to color. It's a pink, but it really is darker and more purpley. Online I saw pictures of it, and it looked much more pink, like light pink kind of, or a more vibrant mid pink. But it's actually like kind of I would think of it as if you were to like find a paint chip that said raspberry on it. I think that that's what this color looks like. So it's showing up pretty well on camera, but I think that it will be perfect for a sweater for me. You can kind of see the yarn behind me. I love bright colors. I wear all bright colors, so I want something that is going to be in style for years to come. I don't really buy new clothes if I can avoid it. So like a tone that will look good on me and I can wear forever, but it's gotta have some color to it. So this is super soft. It was definitely a splurge. So I'm glad I had that gift card. And I mean, honestly though, I knit so slow that if you break it down to like dollars per hour that I'm spending on the yarn, it's not that bad, right? Like if I were to buy tickets to see a movie, they'd be a lot more expensive per hour than how much the yarn costs and how long it takes me to make the project. So I think it's fine. My mom also helped me do my taxes, and I got a little refund, so it's all good. I'm going to spend a little more money on yarn for now. I totally support you if you are being more economical with your yarn. I don't have any other sweater quantities in my stash, so I knew I had to buy new yarn to make another sweater, and I did choose to invest in more expensive yarn. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with knitting yarn that you can afford in the colors you like. So no worries. I'm not a fiber snob. That's not my thing. And a lot of the yarn in my stash is cheaper yarn that I actually think I couldn't wear on skin. And I'm still trying to figure out what to make out of that. So because of that, I actually went to my public library and requested, put on hold, and then picked up some different pattern books for stuffed animals. So I picked up 3. There's one more in transit. But 60 quick knitted toys. animal hats. These are so cute. And then knitted animal scarves, mitts, and socks. And then the one I'm waiting on is knit exotic animals. So I've been flipping through these because I have a lot of scrap yarn that I want to use up, and some of these projects require small quantities of yarn, or like I have what I described, I have like the large, probably Red Heart brand that aren't that soft, balls of yarn, and I don't crochet, so I can't really make a crochet baby blanket out of them. So I was thinking about trying to make some stuffed animals. So that's something I'm looking into moving forward, and I had never considered looking at my local library's knitting books, and it turns out that the library system I'm in actually has probably a couple hundred knitting books, which is insane. And there were 6 different books that pinged when I searched knitted animals. So definitely encourage you, it's worth a shot just to look what's out there. Again, I wouldn't buy a book, like a pattern of, I would probably buy a pattern for a stuffed animal from a designer, but I don't really have much reason to knit stuffed animals, so I don't think that I would personally buy a full book of patterns for knitting stuffed animals. But yeah, the library ended up being a great resource. So this is, I think, going to be a great way for me to make some gifts for, I have a baby niece, and to just kind of knit some fun things in the summer, thinking about what projects will I enjoy working on when it is 95 degrees outside. And I think that stuffed animals are on the top of that list. Okay, I have one more acquisition. So on April 12th, Alex from I Run This Knit and Andrea from Artsy Farts, those are their Instagrams, which I can put below. They're actually co-hosting a webinar about unraveling sweaters. So yesterday I went with my friend to a Goodwill, and I had gotten a video because I paid to register for the webinar, and it kind of explained from Andrea like what you're looking for in a sweater to be able to unravel it in terms of its like construction. But I actually, it was actually really fun. Goodwill is so fun. I got 3 CDs for my car while I was there too. So basically the idea behind this is, you know, a lot of people I think in the knitting community are pretty intentional about their clothes. Like if we spend so long knitting an item, you want it to be of a quality and construction that you can wear it for a long time. You want it to be something that might be in fashion long term, so that you haven't spent so much time making something that you can only really wear in 2021 and then it'll be out of style. But I've definitely been a little bit more intentional about, we waste a lot when we buy clothes and then they aren't in good shape and then we throw them away. So this is a really cool opportunity to save yourself some money and also to help the environment, like by recycling yarn. So I went to the Goodwill. I was looking for sweaters in like a specific seam construction, but also sweaters that probably wouldn't get another chance in their current form. So I didn't take the cutest sweater that I saw because someone will wear that one day, but I got some sweaters that hopefully I will be able to take apart and turn into something else. So I'll show you what I got and talk about it a little bit. So one of the first one up here, this is a cotton sweater. I don't know if I'll be able to unravel all of it. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to unravel these successfully. I think I followed the directions, but the webinar is going to teach me everything because I am coming in with no knowledge at all. But this first sweater, it actually has some staining. So I didn't think that this sweater could have a second life in its current form. Like, I don't think anyone's going to wear it. So I'm excited to maybe give this one a second chance. I like the color. Since it's cotton, I wonder if unraveled it could turn into like a tank top. But yeah, I don't really know. So we'll see if this can be salvaged. But I didn't think anyone would select any of these sweaters. so I didn't feel like I was taking from someone in need who might benefit from buying that sweater. This sweater is an acrylic blend, and again, same from the thrift store. It has pretty significant pilling, and I believe that it has a couple of snags, as does the red one. So again, I don't know how much of a life it has in its current form, but I thought it was really soft and could maybe turn into something new. And then last one, I got this big red sweater. Again, it has some snags and some pilling. I can't see the snags now, but there are in a couple of places where it has really like pulled. And it's not, I don't think, necessarily in a very popular style right now. But it is very bright red, and so I was wondering if this could turn into potentially a Weasley sweater or other Christmas sweater, or maybe more than one sweater if I'm making one for my baby niece who is small. So very exciting acquisitions from the yarn store and from the thrift store and from the library. So I've done a lot of talking, probably going to need a drink of water here in a second, but I was just going to see if I've missed anything. I did want to talk, one last update is that the last time I filmed was right after I'd gotten my first dose of the COVID vaccine, and I have now been fully vaccinated, so I was able to get my second dose this week. I feel very privileged to be in a community that has access to COVID vaccines. I did wait until it was my turn, but I know that if I lived in a different state even, or a different country, it wouldn't be my turn yet. So I am very grateful to that. But I was able to get my second dose of the vaccine. Again, I was pretty fortunate not only to get it, but to have minimal to no side effects. I did take a nap the next day, which is not that, I mean, it's a little out of the norm for me to take a nap, but I don't think that that's a particularly difficult thing to have to do, is to go to sleep the next day. So I ended up being just fine. So I'm excited that a lot of the people that I know are starting to either are fully vaccinated, are in the vaccination process, or are starting to sign up. So yeah, it's kind of been a positive thing. I felt a lot more comfortable with my mom visiting, knowing that I had been vaccinated. I felt more comfortable. Well, I was half vaccinated at that point, but had immunity already and had been, social distancing. Yeah, I felt comfortable going to the mountains because I did not really interact with anyone outside of the people I was traveling with. Did not eat indoors at a restaurant, but that all of us had either tested negative before we went or been fully vaccinated, or a combination of the two. So it was a nice thing to be able to start to do some normal things, but I've been talking to some friends about it, and I definitely won't be ready to just kind of jump back in like nothing ever happened. Like my entire past year has been so weird and so hard, and I've learned a lot about myself, and it has, not been all bad by any means, but I'm definitely not going to be in a crowded bar. I'm definitely not going to reach for someone to give them a handshake. I think it's going to be a huge psychological shift. While we still have COVID cases in beds in North Carolina, and while the numbers are going down, we still have people dying every day. I don't want to treat this like it never happened, or like we're not still in the middle of a pandemic, because we certainly are. But it is nice to be able to have kind of that positive, that I feel safer myself, that I feel like I am, like that fewer people are at risk because more of us are able to get vaccinated. So it has been nice to have that. So if you are out there and you are waiting to your turn to get the vaccine, I feel for you. And if you're still deciding whether or not you want to get the vaccine, I do encourage you to get it, but also to talk about it with your loved ones and figure out, why you're concerned, what might make you feel more comfortable, what what your concerns are and how they can be addressed, and thinking about, while I was a little bit concerned about myself and maybe having side effects, I'd probably rather have the side effects than get COVID, and I'd certainly rather have the side effects than give someone who's at high risk COVID. So that was really on my mind pretty heavily when I made the decision. And yeah, if you're still thinking about that and want someone to talk to, feel free to reach out to me. So thank you guys for watching. If you're still watching and you've been listening to me talk this whole time, it has been wonderful to kind of get back in the swing of things and share my knitting, and maybe one of these days I'll make something that's not knitting, but I have had a lot of knitting mojo, and I have not been really cooking or baking or anything else lately. So anyway, yeah, thanks again for tuning in. Hopefully I'll be able to chat with you in the next couple of weeks and share a little bit more about my Unraveling webinar. But feel free to subscribe, and in the comments below, tell me a little bit about yourself, what you're working on, and ask any questions that you have, because I'm not really sure what you guys would want to know about me. So for now, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.